Alright, so I'm going to start by just sanding my pieces of wood a little bit to knock off any super rough edges. And I just used a piece of sandpaper. I had it went on my palm sander because that's all I could find this day. And then I'm kind of stacking them together. I want to see how they fit together, which way I want them to turn, because this wood had been left outside and pieces had been cut from it, so it was not perfectly straight anymore. It was a little bit warped, and just working with it to see what I wanted to do. And then I'm going in with some white paint, and I think it was an antique white color, and it was just the acrylic paint from Walmart. That's all it was. And I'm going to give all sides of it a good coat of paint. Even though my books are going to be stacked on top of each other, and I am going to be putting some stuff on top of them, I did want just a good base coat of paint on them, especially considering they had been outside and I'd wiped them down. But, you know, sometimes you got to clean them up a little bit. All right, and those little pumpkin pieces I got from the Dollar Tree. And they're going to go on the side of one of the book spines when we're done. And they had these little clips on the back. So what I did is I broke that little clip off and then painted the little pumpkin to go on the spine of the book. And I did all this while I was waiting for the initial paint coat to dry. Give me something to do. And I ended up messing up the first pumpkin I painted and redoing this. And I just took a butter knife that had like a point on it right there and popped that off. It did take a little chip out of the wood, but I was fine with it. I was working on it. This is primitive inspired anyway. It's pretty rustic, and sometimes you just roll with what happens when you're making a craft, and I'm good with that. I'm crafting for me, not to sell. There are certain levels of perfection I'm okay with, and certain levels that I will let pass. So that's what we did. So once your wood stacks are dry, and I want to say my stacks are roughly 6 by 9 in size, in case I didn't mention that before, but I'm just painting the back side of them now to get that part done. And then once that's done, I'm going to let that dry as well. Alright, you can see I started with a pumpkin right there, and we're going to come back to that in a minute. But for now, since the paint on my wood is dry enough to touch and mess with, we are going to find a piece of fall scrapbook paper, and this one just come from Hobby Lobby. It's their standard 8.5 by 11 paper size, and I'm going to cut it down to fit one of my stacks. And I actually preferred it to be cut just slightly shy of 6 inches and slightly shy of 9 inches on the other side, to leave a little bit of overhang on the top. And I'm figuring out what I want the top of my book stack to be here. And then for some reason, I don't know why, but I stopped, but I come back into this pumpkin, and I'm taking some orange paint and dulling it down with a little black to change the color of that wood pumpkin clip I initially painted. And you didn't see it here because it went through a lot of trial and error getting the color right for this pumpkin. But I started with this golden mustardy color I had, house paint, like interior paint I had, and I didn't like it. So I come back in with this brighter orange and dulled it down with a little bit of black to paint that little pumpkin with. And now while that's dried, I am going to use Mod Podge, and I'm going to just use it to adhere my scrapbook paper. I like to do a layer under and a layer over. It does cause some wrinkles. Most of the time I find the wrinkles flatten out a whole lot when it is dry, but this is just what I like to do. I'm not sure if there is a trick to keep the Mod Podge from completely wrinkling up the paper, but I wanted to make sure I had good adhesion, so this is the way I done it. Just keep that in mind. And I almost took too much time trying to get my paper right on the top of it because my Mod Podge started dry too quick, and that created other problems for me. So if you are using Mod Podge, you do need to be prepared to work pretty quick, so keep that in mind. Once I have it adhered and it has had some time to dry, then I'm going to go back in with my sandpaper and I'm just going to rough up the edges. I'm going to rough up the edges of the actual paper itself. I'm going to rough up the edges of the wood blocks. I want it to be just slightly distressed, but for my personal preference, not overly distressed, just very slightly. Alright, and now I'm standing my blocks up and I'm going back in with a paintbrush. I don't know what size it is. It's got a pointy-ish kind of tip on it. And I am hand lettering what I want the sides of my books to stay. And why I put the word fall so close to the center of that one particular book, I have no idea. As soon as I started writing, I was like, what am I doing? But it was already done. I wasn't going to go back and repaint. So I just wrote Fall Harvest in the neatest writing I could manage with a paintbrush right there. And you could also use a stencil. You could use a Silhouette or Cricut machine to put letters on there. This is just what I did to add to sort of the primitive vibe of it. Now that it is painted and dry, I'm taking a long length, probably 6 foot long piece of jute string, and this happened to be a piece of scrap string I had, and I doubled it over in size to wrap around the book. And then when I get to the bottom, I'm twisting it and gonna wrap the other way to create like that double string look of packing the books. And I'm just gonna tie the top in a bow right there, and then I will end up cutting the string because it was looped together right there. And I tied my knot, like I looped the string back under itself and then tied it so that it would hold together better and I wouldn't have a piece that was like floaty above the rest. That was what I preferred. And I didn't tie a bow. I looked like I knotted it because sometimes it's hard for me to remember what I did. And then I'm going back in with my glue gun and I am just gluing that pumpkin onto the spine of the books. And this is kind of hard to do when I couldn't see it. Alright, and there you have it. That is our fall book stack and what it looks like sitting on my mantle for this fall. Thought it was kind of cute. Thanks for watching. Bye!